Hi everyone. My name is Zaki bin Yahaya. I am from Malaysia. So as for today, I am going to present to you my paper entitled Factors Contributing to English Speaking Proficiency Among Undergraduates. Before I proceed, I would like to briefly describe myself to you. Currently, I am servicing the Polytechnic of Tun Syed Nasir Syed Ismail in Johor, Malaysia. I've been teaching for more than 17 years, where I would focus more on oral communication, communicative English, soft skills, presentation skills, and other topics which under the umbrella of English for specific purposes. All this while, I've been teaching mostly senior students, and they are from engineering backgrounds. Since we are all given 12 minutes to present, so I'll try my best to only present the gist of my paper. For that, I have actually distributed the content of my paper into 5 main items. The first one will be introduction, and then I'll move on to relevant literature reviews, methodology, findings, and finally I will present the discussions and conclusion. First, I shall begin with the introduction. English language has been regarded as an important language these days. It is being used widely in almost every aspect of life, especially for students to excel in their studies and for them to excel further in their future career. I don't have to quote anybody for this. Obviously, this is one of the things which is being sought after almost by every employers in the world. And as a student, they need to excel in their study by doing assignments and also presentation, and mostly are being done in English. Typically, in Malaysia, a person will be exposed to English language teaching starting from kindergarten, where they will learn about basic language and structures. For speaking, they will learn about basic phonemes, sounds, and pronunciation, starting with individual sounds, vowel, consonants, and diphthongs, to more complex conversation structures like monologue, dialogue, and even discussion. However, it is still a mystery on why Malaysians still fail to master the language even after years of exposure. That is why the main objective and research question of this study is to assess and find out what is the main or most important factor that contributes to student English speaking proficiency. It is believed that the findings of this study can be of a benefit for a vast group of practitioners, content developers, trainers, and training providers who are involved in English language teaching and training, and other authorities in finding the right strategy to make sure that more students can speak better English in the future. We shall now proceed to the second part of my presentation, which is literature review. Just to let you know, I am not going to present to you extensively the literatures supporting or serve as the basic of my research, but I will only focus on the 4 main chosen factors. Those factors are language anxiety, parental influence, peer influence, and last but not least, instructors' influence. These factors have been chosen as they are very relevant to the context of my respondents. The first factor would be language anxiety. Language anxiety, as mentioned by Crescent 1982, is one of the factors that have been the most researched by when it comes to second language acquisition, apart from motivation and self-confidence. It is some form of fear, uneasiness, and tension related to the foreign language context on the count of speaking, listening, and also learning. It can be a problem that hinders a learner from reaching the intended language learning goals. Learners with extreme anxiety will feel discouraged to learn the language that might affect their faith in succeeding, despondence, and a sense of failure. It is also known as to give negative effects on the oral performance of the learners, as those who feel anxiety in speaking the language will tend to be scared of making errors, as to them it shows a kind of an awareness which stops them from speaking in front of others. A specific study targeting English language learners' anxiety at tertiary education done by Nur Hashima Abdul Aziz found out that majority of the respondents were very nervous when speaking English, and they had great difficulty in expressing themselves in English. Move on to the next factor, which is parental influence. Parental influence and involvement have been also seen as one of the vital factors on one English speaking proficiency. This is due to the fact that parents have been around the students more, and it might help them to create that environment where it can assist one's mastery in the English language. Many researchers agree that parental involvement in the learner's English study proficiency. Parents can provide the learners with the exposure as well as to give them the environment to really expose themselves to the language. Gardner in 1985 further dissected parental influence on language attitude into two roles. The first one will be active and the other one will be passive. Active would refer to how the parents interact with the children with regard to language learning, while passive refers to parents' attitude on the second language community. Thus, this is a strong factor to be included in this study. The third factor would be peer influence. Peer influence can be referred to any communicative activity carried out between learners where there is minimal or no participation from the teacher. Through peer interactions, it would leave more benefit other than negative effects where through scaffoldings, learners develop bridges to proficiency. Through peers, learners become more autonomous, thus making them to better acquire or learn English speaking. Learners may acquire language through imitating others and reuse it to give meanings to the interactions. In many ways, they will help in building their speaking proficiency. The fourth factor is instructor's influence. Instructor's influence here would also include how the instructor leads the class and how the instructor treats the learners in the learning process. Afterward, it would affect how the students fare in their targeted language, where they will not feel ashamed and awkward to use the language, especially in the classroom. The instructor needs to understand the students, and they must be aware that different students have different learning styles. Thus, it is the teacher's responsibility to identify and use a suitable teaching style in classroom learning according to the needs of the students. Methodology. This study employed survey as its data collection methods, where a 5-point Likert scale questionnaire was used on 50 students from University Sultan Zainal Abidin, Terengganu, Malaysia. The subjects were purposely sampled from two different programs, namely Diploma in Teaching English as a Second Language, TESOL, and Bachelor in English with Communication, BEN. The instruments used was adapted from Nazura binti Abdul Rahman, 2016, employing 21 items which were grouped under 4 contributing factors as listed earlier. These factors or the findings were analyzed and further analysis based on the variable were presented in the findings section. From the study, the data were analyzed. They were all presented in graphs according to the factors. Item 1 to 8 are meant for language anxiety factor. Item 9 to 12 are for parents factor. Item 13 to 17 are for peer influence, while the remaining items were meant for instructor's influence. For this presentation, I am not going to present for each of the individual items, but I will only focus on the overall mean scores and standard deviation for all the factors. In order to identify the most prominent factor in influencing students to speak English proficiently, the mean and standard deviation for the 4 factors were calculated and presented in the table here. The highest mean score obtained upon the 4 factors is instructor's influence with a value of 4.2050, which makes instructor's influence as the main factor that contributes to the English speaking proficiency. Meanwhile, parental influence has the lowest mean score with 3.145, which resulted it to be the least contributing factors to English speaking proficiency. Anxiety and peer factors have the mean score of 3.30 and 4.14 respectively. Again, from here, it can be said that instructor's influence is actually the main factor which influence student speaking proficiency. As stated earlier, this research was aimed at finding the most and the least important factors influencing students' English speaking proficiency. From the study, the findings indicate that the instructor is the most prominent factor. This further supported by a research by Yahaya et al. 2011, where they also listed peers as the main contributing factors too. But unfortunately, this research does not show the same. The findings expose that the majority of students agree that they receive encouragement from their lecturers to speak in English outside of the classroom, whilst the lecturer also always practice using English as a medium of communication in class. The finding for this study was also supported by LaRocque, Feynman, and Darling on the same matter. According to the analysis, parental influence had the lowest mean score compared to the other factors. It shows that parents are the most obscure factors in influencing students' speaking proficiency. Even though other researchers pointed parental involvement will impact students' language learning proficiency, but in this study, it does not make parents as the main factor. As for the recommendation, further research on this matter should be done as to dig out more factors underlying one's proficiency in English speaking, as this can help the educators, language trainers, learning institutions, and many other authorities to strategize on how to improve speaking proficiency among students and, of course, future generations. It is recommended that a similar study should be conducted on a bigger scale, and the focus should also be given on those who do not study English as their major, as that will give a clearer view and reflects the masses. This is because English is being used by everybody, and the importance to be proficient in the English language, not just in education, but also for future employment prospects. It is recommended that a qualitative or a mixed method research should be done as to get a thorough result and to make the reasons known. By saying that, I and my team are working on it, and we shall see the result soon. I have finally reached the end of my presentation. I'm so sorry if, let's say, there were anything missing, because I had to cut it short just to make sure that I fulfill the 12-minute requirements. If, let's say, you want to know more about my research, or you want to know about the details of my research, please feel free to email me at this email address. Thank you for your time. Hope to see you again. Good luck and stay safe.